Hey guys, it's Chloe, and this is my video on stereotypes and prejudice. So I'm just going to go down the list of our outline questions to sort of help me piece together my thoughts because I read the prompt the other day and I've been thinking about it. So the first thing, how my culture is perceived by the rest of the world. So I want to talk about my religious Jewish culture as well as American culture. So as I've said, I've been very thankful to travel a lot, go around the world. And one thing that I thought that was really interesting, the one place that I've spent two places I guess I've spent the most significant amount of time in would be Australia and Israel. When I was in Australia, I didn't really feel any prejudice against being Jewish. People seemed pretty relaxed about it. But recently, one of my friends from there, he just texted me last week saying that he has this other Jewish friend that was telling him that all of these terrible things have happened to him. Like he's gotten beaten up on the street, which you see happens a lot in places like France, just because someone's Jewish and they can tell just by what they're wearing, or even worse, they just make assumptions by what people look like. So it's definitely, being Jewish, you have to travel cautiously, and what you wear. Like, for example, I have a ring that I wear. There are certain places, even when I was in Israel, there are certain places that I couldn't wear my ring. And that's in a country where there's obviously massive major part of the country is Jewish. Which, so for the most part there, you're fine, but it's more in Europe. I went to Hungary and I was visiting one of my friends who's also Jewish, and she said, yeah, she can't walk around wearing a star on her neck or anything because it's just really dangerous. And it's crazy to think because you can't walk through the city without seeing Holocaust memorials. And to me, that was just something that was so weird, that it's such a massive part of the society is recognizing the 6 million Jews that were killed. But in the same breath, there's so much anti-Semitism there, and it's not safe to just represent being Jewish. And then I spoke a lot just about that. But as far as American culture, a lot of times, and I notice this mainly in Australia than anything, since it's comparing two Western cultures, with Australians, you say you're American, and then they make these assumptions oh, do you love guns? And it's because I got to Australia the day after the shooting in Parkland, the high school shooting in Florida. And everyone, the taxi drivers, taking me from the airport, every single person was asking me oh, do you love Trump? Do you love guns? Oh, do you hate anyone that's not white, basically? And to me, I was just so shocked, because what's portrayed in the media is not necessarily what it's boots on the ground here. And also people just assume Americans are fat and lazy and this and that, and especially studying health fitness. It's just sort of interesting for me to see that, because then you travel to other places. You go to Australia and you see that diabetes is way high. It's almost at the same level. Death from cardiovascular diseases in America versus Australia are almost exactly the same. So there's certain things like that I found were really interesting and kind of funny to compare. A lot of causes of stereotypes, I think, is just a lot of just ignorance. People are raised not everyone obviously, but a lot of people are just raised closed-minded, and they don't meet other people. Maybe they've never spoken to another Jewish person and knew that they were Jewish and something like that, and so they have these assumptions that I even hate saying them because I just think it's so ridiculous that people are always oh, you're Jewish, you love money. Because I might say, oh yeah, I got a cute dress from Goodwill. And to me, I'm this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life, because why wouldn't anybody else? Why spend $15 or whatever? If you get a dress from Forever 21, why spend $20 on it when you can get the same one in the clearance section for less? To me, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know, that was a really bad example. But it is something that happens. It's something that I have to get used to. Even this, just thinking about it now, a lot of really ignorant anti-Semitic comments. People will say that Jews have horns, which I don't know where that started. I don't know what that's about. But when I was in elementary school, I was maybe 10 years old, 9 years old, I had someone she was one of my friends, ask me if I wore headbands all the time to hide my horns. And like, where you're learning that from your parents. That's where you don't hear that on your own. You don't come up with that type of stuff on your own. You hear it from, and not even social media when we were 9. We didn't have that. But like, it's not, those are things that come from home. And I grew up in a very small town on the other side of the country. And that was just something there that people didn't know other Jews. They didn't know what it was about. I mean, I grew up on an Indian reservation in Montana. And when I moved to North Carolina, I went to summer camp in Indiana. People asked me if the Native Americans lived in teepees. And they were totally serious. And like, to me, I was just like, what do you mean? Why? What? And I've lived all over the country. Ohio, California, Montana, North Carolina. So I've gotten to experience so many different cultures and different types of people. I used to live in an Amish neighborhood. Like, I've just seen so many different things and I've had all these amazing experiences. And that helps me also realize that, like, there are so many people that have these prejudices and stereotypes against other people for completely no reason. And it just really crazy to me. This video is already kind of long, I guess. But is there anything else? I guess one other thing is talking generational. So I've noticed, and I'm sure a lot of other students, at least ECU students, can probably relate to this, that your grandparents might be racist. Your grandparents might be prejudiced. They will have different perceptions than what we have now, because that was how it used to be. Like, people, there were different norms then and different expectations that, like, I obviously was not raised with, thank God. And you do see it changing generationally, and hopefully it would only get better, and that there wouldn't be racism, there wouldn't be hate. This baseless hatred is just so absolutely insane to me, and so much of that, in my opinion, again, comes back to an ignorance of people not wanting to ask questions, not being willing to answer questions, and just having a guard up all the time. I would rather someone ask me a question thinking that it's a stupid question than not answer it, than not ask it and never have an answer for it. So that is my pretty long video on stereotypes and prejudice.